Beyond.
Beyond.
Beyond, man. Welcome to Podcast Beyond, episode 420, dude.
Oh. Shut up.
Podcast Beyond.
That was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
He turned the word beyond into bong, which is when you smoke marijuana.
For those of you unfamiliar, the number 420 is the most marijuana number of all time, according to somebody who did it one time.
That, for those of you wondering, yes, that's all the homework and prep work that Max has done for the show this week. Went entirely into the number.
We're the 420th most popular PlayStation podcast.
You shout.
The number fun PlayStation podcast in the world.
We're actually the number 3 now because of Vault IGN.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, so we're also the number free because it doesn't cost money. Yeah, so there's some stuff going on. We're a little bit frazzled because we're going into Thanksgiving this week, and
we're recording this a day earlier than we usually do. So if something huge happens, if someone dies or someone's born, we apologize for not covering it.
Who would be born for us to cover? The heir to the Trenton fortune.
Yeah,
the next Mahatma.
Yeah,
I guess if Shu had a kid, we would cover it.
We mostly spend Mondays yawning.
Fourth kid.
We absolutely would not do the show a day early or late if Shuhei had a kid. He has kids. We haven't covered those stories in the past. It's a private, personal matter.
Great job,
a great
everybody.
man. Hi, Shu.
Podcast Beyond. I'm Max Scoville. That's Marty. That's Brian, and that's Andrew.
Hey.
Brett.
I said hey at the same time.
Thanks for joining me, folks.
I haven't been on a couple weeks. I missed this.
I know.
Yeah. We missed you.
So it's an Xbox show now. We've changed the whole thing.
Yeah, mad about it.
You brought our Pocket Monster shirt.
I said a bad word. Sorry.
Good job with that. So really big news. I'm actually super excited about this. Some guys did some science and figured out that PS2 emulation is sort of works on PS4.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm really excited. And it kind of already started in a weird way because Super Star Wars came out.
Yeah, I mean we've got these PS2 classics coming by way. That was a Super Nintendo game that they put on there. But like we know that there's also there's Bounty Hunter and Racer Revenge is coming, and apparently they work if you have that super fancy kind of hideous Darth Vader PS4.
And Starfighter, which was not a great game.
That's right, Starfighter. But it's odd because it's like those aren't games you really consider classic Star Wars games by any means. Super Star Wars you can put in that category. It's kind of cool to see a Super Nintendo game get put on PlayStation. But these ones are like, huh? And I guess the guys, some guys at was it Eurogamer? I think they were goofing around.
It was Wired.
Was it Wired? It was Wired.
Yeah.
Okay. No, Wired reached out to Sony for the comment, but I think Eurogamer was. They were goofing around with these PS2 games on PS4, and there's some like it's apparent this is like emulation, like this isn't just like a proper port. This is like
They basically built a PS2 emulator from the ground up that runs on PS4. And if you've ever looked into any of that with any video game system before, the general rule is that you have to be it's almost usually 2 generations ahead of what you're trying to emulate. Makes it easier to actually recreate that. In the case of Xbox 360 and Xbox One, that's a different story. And it feels like this is kind of a response to that. I know that's not how companies operate. It's not like WWF. But it does kind of feel like this is sort of like – I know Sony said a few months ago they weren't really interested in looking at backwards compatibility for PS3 and PS4, but they're like, but what about PS2? Yeah. So it's kind of cool that's happening.
It's nice, too, because one of the only reasons I had my PS3 up until recently was for PS2 classics.
Really?
So I'd really like to see a lot of that brought over. Yeah, I mean, I was in the middle of a Persona 3 playthrough. I finally just gave up on and started on PSP.
And, I mean, we see analytically by the traffic that we get, I guess analytically,
weirdly,
is like when the Xbox One announced backwards compatibility at E3, it was one of the biggest stories of E3, which is insane that stories about 100 old games was one of the biggest stories. And then when they finally released it, a month ago or within the last month, it was huge. That list is huge on IGN. So people
still weirdly
care.
is. Even over the weekend, that was one of the biggest articles in IGN, even though it's like a week
Specifically, the IGN audience, too, is really into that. The idea of playing old stuff. I'm sure a lot of people are. Preservation is another great angle on this that I think a lot of people are. People look at this and then they're just like, well, I don't really care about those old games. But it's like, yeah, but having places where you can play those old things preserved in time is actually, whether or not you're interested personally in replaying them, it's an important thing for our medium to even have.
Well, and I mean, the PS2 is the second best-selling console of all time.
No, it is the best-selling console of all time.
over the Wii,
Huge.
right?
Believe so. We came close. I believe it's still PS2. Yeah, by far,
so this is of any console, this is the one that the most people will have played.
Yeah.
And there's a massive, massive library there, which is cool.
And it's interesting,
obviously,
too.
a lot of people are going to be like, why don't PS3 games work? And it's because it's an entirely different architecture.
And it really is like with Cell specifically too.
And this is also great because like, I mean, I know a lot of people, the issue with like the Xbox One and 360, like what's exciting there is that like maybe you still have your old system, you don't want to throw it out, and you got all these games for it. Now it's like, oh, I don't have to, I can get rid of my system, but I can keep some games that I like. In this case, I think it's almost more exciting because these are games that I assume most people have probably gotten rid of, you know, maybe except for, you know, select favorites. Like you can go to Goodwill and find PS2 games.
Yeah.
Finding like PS3 games, a little bit more difficult, you know?
Yeah, I'm curious whether
sold way less.
I'm curious whether this is going to mean you can actually insert a DVD, like a PS2 game, or if this is just going to be like they're going to open up a store.
So
no
actually,
way. I would imagine it's going to be exactly the same as on PS3. It'll be PS2 classics that you can buy from PSN, and the same how you can buy like PSP games on Vita. I think just bringing PS2 classics back with trophy support would actually be awesome because on PS3, like, you know, you can play a PS2 game and it runs great and it's fine, but you kind of enter that different environment and like same thing like on like I'm playing, like I said, I'm playing Persona 3 Portable right now on Vita. And you can still, you know, everything works. You can suspend and resume. You can do everything you would do with the Vita. It treats it like a normal app that's running. Your friend notifications still pop up, all of that. But you can't cloud save. So it's like if for some reason that got corrupted, I would just lose my save immediately. And I think there's no trophies for it. So I think like going back and adding that stuff for some of these games, like as minor as it is, would just be a nice touch. And I think like it those games are still kind of expensive. Like it's still like $20 to get certain games. So it would be nice to have that little added. At least I'm feeling like there's some kind of digital reward for getting it.
What's the sweet spot price wise for you guys if they do release PS2 classics? Like
I don't know. This is always weird, right? Like I never know how these things are priced. Like if you look at the pricing structure that Nintendo uses on their things, NES games are $5. Genesis games are $8, and
Super NES, you mean?
Super NES games are $8, and Genesis also actually. And Nintendo 64 games are $10. So Nintendo sells Nintendo 64 games. Now, mind you, there's only like 2 or 3 on the service that or a few on the service that you can buy for $10, and that's the same generation as the PS2. But I feel like I don't.
It's the same generation as the PS1.
As the PS1, that's right. So I feel like I don't know what like. Do you charge 15? Is it 20?
I think you cannot charge 15.
No.
Like
No.
we're getting brand new Game of the Year caliber games for 15. Everybody Gone to the Rapture was 20.
Yeah.
Like there's no way.
I feel like 20 is the max you can charge. I would for certain games. Like again, I paid 20 for Persona 3 Portable. Like I mean, like there are certain games where like I feel like it. You know, if I'm going to spend 100 hours with it, I don't really mind.
I mean, they were selling Super Star Wars for $10 the other day, right? That's a Super Nintendo game.
That was an updated one, though. You know, that's not just. It's
and
like
that's a full like port,
Yeah, I think that I get that. Also, you're paying for a license there. I mean, if it's Sony games, I mean, I imagine there was probably some headache of getting the rights from the Super Nintendo game to bring it over.
Right.
You know, it's kind of.
Yeah, I'm one of those things. If they're $5, I am much more likely to spend a hell of a lot of money on a bunch of $5 games than if they're
Right there
15
with
or
you.
20. I might not buy any.
I don't think there's any universe in which PS2 games will be $5 each.
Yeah.
I think 10 will be the sweet spot.
I-
Even then, that'll probably be a little bit.
I would
under.
expect them to be 15 or 20, but hopefully they're kind of incorporated in that like flash sales and stuff.
Right.
Like I mean, like Persona 4 Golden's I think $9.99 right now, and like they do all these incredible deals
How
on
awesome would
Vita
it be
games.
if you every month we got a free PS2 game for
That's
PlayStation Plus?
what I was
That'd
thinking.
be really cool.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. I like
That'd be
that
really
idea a
cool.
lot.
Yeah. So let's I don't know of the PS2 games that really haven't been, because a lot of the classics have been reissued on PS3, like Shadow of the Colossus and Ico and the Metal Gear games.
Or even like stuff like GTA 3 where it's like it's on iPad. So it's like it's not on PS4 necessarily, but it's like I can play it on a modern thing if I want to.
So I mean, which games do we want? You already mentioned Persona 3.
Yeah, Persona 3 FES would be awesome because, you know, you can get portable and play it on Vita, but FES has like the answer and has a bunch of extra content. It's sort of like the equivalent of Golden. I like that game a lot, and then I feel like you're gonna make fun of me for this one, but actually Spider-Man 2.
I'm gonna make fun of you for that. That's awesome.
You know, I was
That's
always curious about Ultimate Spider-Man, which was the one that wasn't a movie tie-in, but apparently it was like kind of so-so.
Yeah, that's the comic one.
I was just
I feel like
curious
they've
about
all been like it's this weird thing where I've always been trying to recreate that high of Spider-Man 2. Like I played a lot of Spider-Man 3, and I played Shattered Dimensions and like all those Spider-Man games that came out after. I mean, and I think 2 is the only that might still be one of my favorite open world games ever because the swinging is like perfect.
Yeah.
Honestly, until Arkham, that was probably my favorite superhero game.
Oh yeah,
I totally agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that swinging mechanic, the guy who designed it is now, I think he launched a Kickstarter and he's making this indie game that's all designed around that swinging mechanic.
Yeah, that Kickstarter campaign was really weird because it was like back in the earlier days of Kickstarter where there were kind of no cops and like that the goal was like $1 or something, and so it like hit its goal immediately and then flew past it.
Yeah.
It's really interesting that nobody has been able to replicate that super well.
They don't have that guy. You need that guy.
Yeah,
that's
that's the rope master.
You don't make an open world rope swinging game without the rope master.
It's lots of ropes.
Yeah, I'm less concerned with the classics. You know, like I know there's obviously they do get remastered. We get the HD Criterion Collection stuff, but I'd like to see some kind of so-so games. You know, like more out of curiosity for kind of the ruby tinted glasses of nostalgia. Simpsons Hit and Run. I remember having fun with that.
Yeah.
Like that's not a perfect game by any means, but that's a fun game.
Yeah,
I'd pay $7 for that. And
Especially if it's cleaned up a little bit too. You know, like or at least just running in widescreen and it just looks gorgeous.
That was the one that was like GTA, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
God, I don't know. Like, there's so many that I missed out on just because that was like, you know, PS2 was kind of at its height when I was preoccupied with a lot of other stuff. And I always had friends. I never had a PS2 actually. I always had friends who had a PS2, and they always liked games that I didn't. So it was sort of just like,
Yeah.
all right, you know,
Totally.
My friends always
also
played
again,
Dynasty
like-
Warriors. I don't stop it.
The biggest gem, or gems is the word for it, but the ones that I think people would think of are mostly out there, like Metal Gear and like you said, Eco and Shadow of the Colossus and Final Fantasy X and
the
like all
Jack
these
trilogy
things.
and all the Ratchet games,
Exactly,
and Sly Cooper
like
games.
so many of those things have already come to PS4 natively that it's weird thinking about like what I would want in its original form. Because keep in mind, these are just going to be like throwing the disc into a PS2. Like it's not like these are going to be like updated graphically or anything like that.
Oh, Mr. Mosquito.
Yeah.
There you go.
What about Mr. Mansquito?
What else we
What
got
about you,
going
Ryan?
on?
I picked Lego Star Wars and
Nice.
Killer 7. Killer 7 is one of my favorite games. The PS2 port's not the best one.
Yeah.
The GameCube
GameCube
version
was-
actually
yeah.
is the best because the PS2 one has like FMV cutscenes instead of them running in real time off engine.
Yeah.
And it's got worse load times, but maybe some of those things can be fixed
Mm-hmm.
in 2015. I also like I've mentioned that game a couple times in this show. I really like it. It's very special and it's dead.
And it's singular. Like nothing else is like it.
Yeah, there's nothing else
Yeah.
like it. It's just a really cool experience. And the Lego games, I feel like Lego Star Wars is one of my favorites. I replayed it recently on 3DS, I want to say. And it's like when it's hard to go back and play very old games. Both of these games actually are very low poly, which makes me feel like they would hold up better in 2015 than stuff that was sort of
Trying to be realistic.
Yes, anything that was thriving
Also,
to be the most realistic.
We
of the
forget
game.
this, but we were totally all playing on CRTs back then.
Yeah.
And it's amazing
Yeah,
how much
seriously.
that little bit of a fog and the scan lines kind of obscures some really hideous design.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, especially on PS2, which wasn't the greatest at anti-aliasing.
Ooh, I want Star Wars Demolition. That was PS1, I think.
No.
Yeah,
was
it
it?
was PS1.
I don't even think I
That was
know
the
I don't know what
PS1.
that is either.
That's
That was like
Twisted
the
Metal with
Twisted
Star
Metal
Wars.
one.
Oh, really?
I had that game. That was a
Are
fun
they all
game.
ground vehicles?
More or less. I mean, they're
there
all
a
flying.
sandcrawler?
There's
Yeah,
no. You
but
get
I remember
you
like
get
an ATST. I remember.
Yeah.
Wow, that
like
sounds
there was like
great.
a
Sounds
Slave
awesome.
One cart, I think.
No,
Or like
no. It was just Boba Fett.
Was it?
Like, he was the only one
It was
without a
just
vehicle,
Boba
but he was just flying around in a jetpack. It was
Wow.
It was super dumb, but it
Yeah.
was really fun. It came out around the same time as Super Bombad Racing. That's a PS2 game I'd
Yep.
play
Bomb
for 10
good.
minutes
So
and
Jar
throw
Jar
the
game.
trash.
Yeah, let us
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Let us know what PS2 games
Yeah.
you want to see on PS4. This is pretty cool that this is happening.
Yeah,
I've always wanted just a one console to sort of be that definitive library box.
Yeah.
And we're not there yet, but it'd be cool if PS5 could play every game up until PS5.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean,
Yeah,
that's what people
what-
keep saying about NX and stuff too. Like,
Yeah.
One can dream, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's also just certain games that just sort of got lost to time. Like, I mean, the two that came to mind for me were, I mean, no pun intended, but Time Splitters. Like that series
yes.
was great.
I
Yeah.
love
Time Splitters,
I love
Future
that game.
Perfect. Like the multiplayer was so
Games are
good, and the
so
campaign
good.
was so
Yeah.
funny and just like tossing you across time. And
Like a bunch of us are playing a ton of Battlefront right now,
Yeah.
which is a pretty accessible, straightforward, kind of casual first-person shooting experience, which is really fun. It totally reminds me of the way I used to play
Yeah,
Time Splitters,
totally.
which was just like have a few drinks and then fire it up with my friends
Yeah.
and just like
It's so funny for me because I remember playing Time Splitters as like a very young, like a high school student or younger than high school.
Time
So
Splitters
it's like,
2 was out when I was in college.
yeah,
wow.
So I was definitely that was the one with the monkeys and the time travel stuff,
Yep.
right?
that was all.
Yeah.
I always get that.
That was
get,
the one
like-
with the splitting.
I always
Yeah.
get Time Splitters and Time Crisis mixed up.
Oh.
Just like, man, you guys had $275 to play that game. I was going to go down to the Cineplex
You guys
and
got
pop
drunk at
pumping
the movie
quarters.
theater and
Yeah.
played that game?
Crazy.
The other one that came to mind was Mark of the Cree. I don't know
Yeah.
if you guys remember that. That had one of the coolest. It was like you're playing like a Disney animated movie and had one of the best combat systems. And that's just something that, again, that studio doesn't, or that like franchise just doesn't exist. And I sort of get shades of it with Wild, the Michel Ancel game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird until I don't know why that reminded me of all things, but actually a big thing I would want on this list is Kingdom Hearts because they have, even though they released those collections for PS3, they haven't come over to PS4. So I would actually just be fine playing the originals. They don't have to be updated or anything.
Do you guys remember that game Disc Read Error?
Oh yeah, that was a really good one.
That was the most played game on my first PS2.
Yeah.
All right, so
Mallrats the DVD.
here's some news. There may be more BioShock on the way. Take-Two Interactive CEO Strauss Zelnick has called the series unquestionably a permanent franchise. I mean,
like
this is your favorite thing, right?
Yeah, God, they've talked about this before a little bit. I mean, we all assume it's in development somewhere. It's this weird thing where like 2K Marin, who made BioShock 2, is gone. They kind of became, for the most part, Hangar 13, which is making Mafia 3 and Vodka. And then, 2K Australia helped on all those games. They're now defunct. Irrational, they're now defunct. So it's like this interesting thing where like, I don't want to get excited for BioShock until I know who is doing it.
Right.
Because I totally believe that it's out there somewhere being made.
You think there's a BioShock game being made right now?
Yes,
at least in pre-production. Totally.
I absolutely do.
Really?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But you just don't know which studio.
BioShock, the iOS trading card game.
Yes.
Damn it.
Perfect.
That Vita game's still on the way too.
Yeah, totally.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's what happened when Ken Levine holds up a Vita.
That's when you know it's real.
It's got to be real, and shows the logo that he had on his computer.
Man, whoever's making it, I almost wonder if it'll even be an owned 2K studio. Like I can see them finally deciding to like outsource it to somebody.
Right.
But like I just want to know what it is. Like I'm very excited. I don't know if you remember the Infinite announced trailer where it's a fake out and it looks like you're in Rapture, but it's actually a fish tank, and then a handyman crushes the fish tank.
Right.
Like I just love that, and I would hate to see them go back to Rapture or Columbia.
Yep.
Like I think whatever it is, just start new. I don't need anything beyond very light Easter eggs and references to the original BioShock games.
The worst thing that series did was, I think, have a sequel. I mean, it was sort of that. Is it a sequel with BioShock 2? But like the whole thing is, it's an alternate universe, or alternate realities.
Yeah.
Why not? Like, I mean, go anywhere new.
And that was the thing.
Yeah, I mean, that was just being able to reuse assets.
That was exactly right. Like 2K Marin has bred some of the most incredible talent in the industry. Don't get me wrong. Like the people who worked there have gone on to do so many cool things at so many cool studios. But that game very much felt like a mandate to me. It felt like, oh, you like Big Daddies? Now you play as one, and there's multiplayer, and it was just very much like
girl.
Yeah, well,
there's a lady daddy now. There's a big mommy. You can fight 40 of her in some leaky basement.
And the thing is,
you're
like,
up pipe. You bored of that? Here's another 12 hours of that. That game. No, I'm sorry. This story of and Max bringing that up, it totally evokes the really just not bad, but just really just flatlined dead memories I have of BioShock 2. Like there was really, I don't know, I played that entire game for probably 10, 12 hours. I finished it. I don't remember any of it.
Yeah,
aside from they just kept throwing more of the same at you.
There are parts of it that I do think are legitimately like interesting and smart. It's sort of non-canon. Like, I mean, Ken Levine hasn't really ever acknowledged it, and I guess he's the only one. But at the same time, it gave us, Jordan Thomas was creative director on that game, and he went on to make the Magic Circle this year, which is really, really cool. Yeah.
And the DLC was Fulbright. Well, like pretty much all the Fulbright company.
Right. And that's the thing. Like, so yeah, Jordan Thomas went on to kind of contribute a lot of incredible stuff to Infinite before he left. But then, Steve Gaynor and Carla and a lot of those people who are now at Fulbright making Tacoma worked on Minerva's Den, which is still probably among the best DLC ever. And that story, the Charles Porter story, is incredible. You can play it as long as you have a copy of BioShock 2. You can play it without needing, to have played the game at all. That DLC as a standalone BioShock story might be the tightest thing in that entire thing. But anyway, that aside, I think more BioShock would be incredible.
So you're obviously the number one BioShock fan this side of everywhere.
Listen to my number one BioShock podcast.
It's actually the number
Biotalk
2 BioShock
with Andrew Goldfarb and no one else.
Where do you want to see
Ryan's Tesla podcast.
That's right.
I already went. We went underwater. We went into sky. Where else are we going? Earth.
Brian made a really cool feature about this way back in the day.
You and I worked on this together, right?
Brian and I, it probably doesn't work anymore. It's probably like iframes garbage.
Yeah.
But like in 2011, Brian and I did a feature on this. Yeah, I mean, there's always those there's all this dumb. If you Google around,
we pitched like an Ewok Village one, right?
We did one in the trees. There was one inside of an active volcano. There was one in like an ice. There was
the world is hell out there. Come live in this volcano with us.
Did you guys just go with like video game levels
as
opposed to time periods?
I mean,
what goes into what is a BioShock game? Like what makes it? You need
a
lighthouse.
Yeah.
And
a girl with half a thumb,
some messed up guns.
I mean, it's basically it's the idea of
superpower juice,
a questionable madman with political ambitions,
something bad,
and a society that's
shooting in your veins.
Yeah, basically, it is a society that's separate from regular society, and I think people. You would hope that it can be something as simple as like I don't know. I'd even be fine with it being a segmented part of a city, or like it doesn't have to be anything crazy. It doesn't have to be underwater or in space or whatever. Like
I'm all for them getting away from the 1950s aesthetic.
Yeah, I mean, like
I feel like when they first did that was fine, but like we've had like 4
Columbia
Fallouts
is more,
and a whole bunch
20s, 30s.
Yeah, make a 1980s game. You know,
well,
like make a 1980s BioShock.
70s or an 80s game.
Yeah.
That would be
So 70s BioShock,
right?
Set in like a gritty New York or like a like weird like shadow city inside of New York.
Yeah,
we got
and
that.
that's what I want. I want exactly that. I want essentially Arkham City, but like a sectioned off part of an existing city. I think. It'd be a
I want
fascinating
an
way to do
underwater
BioShock.
Nakatomi Plaza from Die Hard.
Perfect.
Basically, they're throwing a party and there's a whole bunch of people you have to fight, and they're
What's the driver's name in Die Hard 1? I want him to just be there for no reason.
Argyle?
I want Argyle in a limo just waiting outside of wherever the new BioShock
That'd
takes
be
place
awesome
for the entire game.
No, I'm excited for this. I mean, I think there's cool stuff you can do there. I think, like you said, it's a matter of whatever studio gets their hands on it.
And how willing Take-Two is to let them play around with it. I think, I want to see something different. I really do. And I hope that they don't make them do it in Rapture. I hope they don't make them. It starts at the lighthouses and it's starring Elizabeth and blah, blah. Like, I would love to just have no connection whatsoever to kind of like that True Detective Fargo style thing where it's like you can have it loosely tied.
There's also like cute things where like if you do it in a city, it could be like a bar called the Lighthouse that is like the entrance to the thing.
Yeah,
totally. That sounds
I love
awesome.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to see them. BioShock now. If you just look at BioShock 1 and BioShock Infinite, I worry that they're going to do that thing where it's like almost this like by the numbers, like okay, like. Start and whatever it is, a lighthouse, and then you go into this remote city and there's a madman running it. Like, I kind of don't want any of those tropes. I would rather see them keep it kind of thematically, like the core ideas of kind of a separate society and, kind of like that weird, like dystopian vibe. I'd be fine
I was literally
with,
just to be like, what if this time you play the bad guy? I was like, that already happened.
Yeah. No, the idea of like a futuristic city that was a utopia that fell to the hands of drug addicts.
Sure.
Is a cool concept.
Well,
So
I think that
hopefully
the thing that was missing from Infinite was that was very clearly should have been an open world game. The whole idea of having a rail system and traveling around, like it's completely idiotic to have rail systems that just go around in circles. Like, it's like, what is the point of that?
And that's the thing too. Like, I think BioShock now, again, like I don't want them to operate within the constraints of the other games. Like, if you're gonna make a current gen BioShock game, like let it be open world.
That is a franchise that works so well as an open world game.
Totally agree with that. And for backtracking, honestly, like that's a game where like,
especially if it almost has like Metroidvania elements to where like,
that's what I was gonna say exactly. Like of all series, like if you're gonna do it kind of in the style of what BioShock has been in the past, like. Yeah, like as you learn, imagine like a Metroidvania, but not necessarily with weapons or plasmids, but with knowledge. Like if you're going back to an area and just know more about it, you can understand it enough to like explore deeper.
Yeah. The key thing is it has to be interesting. Like it has to be something you care about for X amount of time.
Yeah, and I think like Infinite suffered from, if you go back to BioShock 1 or 2, I think BioShock 2 mechanically has it all over BioShock 1, and they did a lot of interesting things with the weapons and with kind of what you could do with plasmids. I'd like to see them, again, think outside the box. Like, I don't need it to I don't need fire. I don't need telekinesis. Like, give me something that's actually, like, fundamentally affects gameplay in an interesting way. I don't know. I really hope they give this to someone who is willing to take risks
being able
and try
to run
cool.
really, really fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That'd be a cool power to
That'd be cool.
run it
That'd
real
be cool.
fast.
What about instead of birds, you could just throw a whole bunch of cats at people?
Or
What if
watermelons.
you could
It's
throw
just
a
Murder
just throw up on
of
command.
cats.
just heavy fruits.
Yeah. No, I just those environments need to be like airtight. Like the first hour of BioShock
Because it's
Infinite.
underwater. Of course it needs to be airtight.
Damn it.
It's going to get all wet.
Stop it. No, but like
Same with those balloons in the third one, huh? Gotta make sure those.
You're idiots. I hate all of you.
I think I worry.
The guy in a popsicle shirt just called us idiots.
For me, the big thing with BioShock is obviously Ken Levine gets a lot of the credit. The writing has always been incredible in those games, but honestly, the art direction is the star for me with Rapture and Columbia. So My biggest fear isn't that they can find a good writer for it. My biggest fear is that they can have that kind of incredible aesthetic, because I feel like those are married.
Yeah,
exactly.
And it's not just also trying to top the one hit and be like, oh,
exactly.
do you like bloomers and ruffles and weird steampunk guns? Well, guess what? There's more of them now. It's like, do something, take that philosophy and go somewhere with it.
Yep.
Yeah, we were talking earlier, we think that this is a candidate for one of those games that has the Fallout treatment of it gets announced at an E3 and is out that fall because of how long the sort of PR cycle on Infinite was.
I don't think you hear about this game for at least a year and a half. I think
Really?
you
so
get
not
this.
no E3 2016 reveal?
No way. I would be shocked. I think you.
Oh, would you?
Awful. All right. Just awful.
Good episode, folks. Tune in for episode 421. No, I think maybe E3 2017 and then it's out fall 2017 would be my totally shot in the dark guess.
Okay.
Because unless they've been very quietly doing this, but Irrational dissolved in early 2014, so it's been just under 2 years now. I guess that's enough time to have shopped it to a studio, but I would imagine it took them a long time to recruit a team. I don't know. I can't wait. I really am excited to see where this franchise goes.
We'll see. Cool. Stay tuned.
Speaking of franchises, Deus Ex: Mankind Divided, more like Mankind Delayed, is the name of that game. They moved it from February 23rd release into
They moved it from
to
February
August.
23rd to August. It's 6 months to the day.
Yeah. So February 23rd was that day that it was going to be Far Cry Primal, Mirror's Edge, and Deus Ex.
Yep.
And 2 of the 3 of those have already been delayed.
Yeah.
But wait,
And
guys,
I still
thought
really think Far Cry will be delayed.
I thought if we all pre-ordered at the same time, we could augment reality.
What a
That campaign feels even dumber now.
Yeah.
Well, it's also
what a rough launch for that game. Like I love cyberpunk stuff. I like Deus Ex a lot. I have lost interest. Like they've got to do some. They've got to do some magic.
And
to
when
make
was this announced? Was this an E3 game?
So no, it was a Game Informer game.
It was a Game Informer cover. That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Like this just feels to me like you talk about PR cycles going on for a long time. Adding 6 months to the tail end of this is really interesting.
I mean, it's going to slip. It's going to be at another E3. Like.
And that's the thing. A lot of people point out on Twitter, though. It's like, what else does Square have in the fall? So in a way, it's like, obviously, you don't delay a game for 6 months just for a convenient schedule. But
Final Fantasy.
But I mean, like from the West, what else? I mean, like Tomb Raider will be coming to PS4. Exactly. Hitman's early. Just Cause is now. Yeah. Like I mean, it'll be out in a few weeks. Like I don't know what else they really have in their catalog. So
I mean, they're gonna have wait. Are they doing
Tomb Raider for PS4 and PC will come next fall, but I mean, obviously that game's out now.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just really, I think like
maybe they'll have Deus Ex Go.
Yeah,
I would love
that. Would be awesome.
That would be such a cool
They
game.
had Life is Strange also.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
but this year, that's what I'm saying. When this comes out next August,
I mean, they're gonna have whatever that Kingdom Hearts 30. That's 2.9.
Oh, that's 2.9. Yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah, I mean, I really liked the last Deus Ex. I thought it was great, but this is one of those games where I'm just like, I'm just fine. I'll play it when it comes out, but I'm sort of done.
I mean, I remember when the first Deus or the last Deus Ex was unveiled at E3 or whatever, and it was the same. It was the same year as. God, it was like Twisted Metal and XCOM, The Bureau or whatever, and it was just like all these things. And that one, like Deus Ex, looked incredible. Man, maybe it was after that, but it was a long time ago. Like it was a good chunk of time. That came out 2012, I think.
2011.
2011,
late 2011.
Yeah, like that's been a while. It's been quite a minute, and I feel like with the amount of time they've taken to kind of make a sequel to that reboot, they've kind of like that feels old. Like
it will have been 5 years, right?
It feels. Next year, I feel like
they spent like 2 years porting that game everywhere. Like it's on iOS. They put it on Wii U. Like it's just they put it everywhere instead of just like jumping into a new game.
It's on Wii U.
This is obviously something that we had actually kind of heard from some people here and there who had checked it out already that it needs some more time in the oven. So I'm totally okay with that. But yeah, the big thing is that there was once a day in February that was a very big day that is not so big anymore, huh?
That's the thing, yeah.
Which I kind of like seeing.
I'm totally fine.
I'm okay with
now. I could just devote my time to Far Cry.
Yeah,
that day.
Yeah. Mirror's Edge is May now.
I like it when the publishers realize that there are 50 weeks in the year.
Yeah.
Across the whole year.
Well, and it's also really nice too that getting AAAs out of February is awesome because now it gives games like Oxenfree and
Firewatch
and The Witness. Exactly. Like we have a lot more games now that are early in the year that can kind of have the spotlight, which is really cool.
Also, May and August are relatively calm months, so I will play Mirror's Edge when it comes out in May, and I will play Deus Ex when it comes out in August.
Yep, sounds good. Republic, that's coming to PS4.
Yeah.
What do you make of this? You like this?
I have played this game. Yeah, this is.
This was on iOS.
I played episode 1 on iOS.
iOS, and then it got ported over to Steam.
It's the one where you're directing somebody to get out of the thing with the
Yeah,
and their security
You're
cameras.
pretty much the method of control in the game is that you are a guy monitoring through security cameras as this girl is trying to escape sort of a dystopian like prison / government building, and on iOS at least, you're sort of tapping. You're telling her like when to take cover and when to, like what to grab, what items to grab, and like when to attack enemies. And she's like severely underpowered compared to the armed guards, so it's all about sort of stealth and strategy. The game it's really good writing, really well acted. This really interesting story.
Ryan Payton did it, right?
Yeah, Ryan Payton, who he's
friend of the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
He worked on this game for. I mean, what did he work on before this? Like
he worked on. He was the lone American at Koji Pro during like Metal Gear Solid 4.
Yeah.
Now, here's a fun thing. I've heard that this game is inspired by Konami's offices.
Wow.
And
that would not surprise me.
I've been there, and they have a lot of blank doors and a lot of cameras, like those the same way that Metal Gear does, and you got cameras every which way.
They have ladies talking to you.
I don't know about that.
They have weird going away parties that aren't going away.
The sense of that kind of just like overall, like just overbearing, kind of like somebody watching you, like and trying to,
there was that
out of there.
when you were like really good at a mission in Watch Dogs and you had things really under control and you were actually switching between every single camera on the fly to handle things and take out generators and stuff like that. That's kind of the crux of how the control methods work in this game. I was always kind of pushed off of it because it's a pretty cinematic experience that I played on an iPhone, one generation ago or whatever, and it was kind of like, this is the kind of thing I want to sit down in front of my television with surround sound headphones. So it's really awesome that it's coming to consoles. I think it was on PC, right?
Yeah, it was on PC, so I imagine they're going to
Steam.
sort of take that control method. But yeah, that'll be out. As of right now, it's just early 2016, so the first quarter of 2016. It's only going to be $25, which is great, because it was a 5-part episodic game for iOS. But
that was the other thing that was hard to keep up with, was I was playing it one episode at a time, and I got like 2 or 3
Is the last
episodes
episode out?
Yeah, the game's done.
Yeah, so you'll be able to play this all at once. Yeah, we're fans, so this is really cool. This was a Kickstarter game, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I really want to get back into it. I only played episode 1.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally worth just
way
waiting.
back.
And,
I think I played it on iPhone, not even iPad.
I played on iPad. Yeah, good looking game. Really cool stuff. So check that one out next year.
That's awesome. Now, here's something that's not awesome. Afro Samurai 2 apparently has been removed from PSN. This is Afro Samurai 2 Revenge of Kuma, and it has been removed from Steam and the PlayStation Store. And they haven't had many details on why it was taken down. General Manager of Versus Evil, Steve Escalante, said the game has been pulled and canceled in its entirety due to the fact that people didn't like it.
Man, could you imagine if every time someone didn't like something, the thing got pulled and canceled?
Honestly,
nothing.
We would not have this many episodes of the show under our belt.
We're in this We're in this really interesting time where like something like Assassin's Creed Unity or any number of games come out and they're really buggy and people complain and they hate that they spent $60 on them. And it's like really interesting because it is very rare that you'll see a game just fully, they're like, you know what, like we messed up. And I don't know, I really could probably not care less about Afro Samurai 2, but I do respect how candid they were with this. Like, I don't know, it's something you never, ever, ever see in this industry.
Yeah.
I mean, it like the one time it happened for a little bit earlier this year was with Batman on PC.
Yes, totally.
When it was like a
Perfect
disaster and they were like, hey, like, I'm sorry if you bought this, but no one can buy this until we fix it.
I don't think people didn't like that game. I think PCs themselves didn't like that game. They would try to kill themselves when it was put on.
But I mean, I honestly can't remember, like, games have been removed from like XBLA for like weird rights issues. I think some like the old Turtles arcade games.
Yeah,
like,
actually, you see that kind of stuff happen a lot.
Deadpool, kind of. It's rare to see something that's high profile like this, or like with a known license get pulled, because frequently licensed stuff is just blatant shovelware, and they're like, "Hey, we made a buck." Deadpool got pulled off of Steam for a second. It just recently popped up on PS4. That was the Activision Marvel X-Men crossover thing. I think that's because of Marvel's weird ownership rights with the Deadpool.
Isn't that High Moon?
Yes.
This is, and then I mean, earlier this year, obviously we had all the PT shenanigans. So it's just a weird. I mean, going forward as we have more of these kind of digital future, like this is going to happen more and more often. Like if you don't physically own the disc,
isn't that scary?
Like
or
you
even if you
no
do
protection.
physically own the disc, like I mean, that's the weird thing now is like there was I remember playing Batman on my Xbox and like I literally couldn't play it if I was not connected to Xbox Live, which is a really weird situation to be in.
Yeah, we just talked about like preservation of games, and I think even bad ones need to be preserved. Like we don't only save good books, you know, or TV shows or movies. Like all of that is part of painting the picture of what the gaming landscape was at that given
specific
moment.
time and place.
Like you can't judge our medium just based on the best stuff. Like
whatever you hate there is someone somewhere that's probably their favorite game.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's someone who loves Afro Samurai too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Totally.
Well, it's funny. The things that die out are frequently the things that people are least fond of. I did a feature on like horror movies for Christmas, and one of them was the movie Jack Frost, where that snowman tries to do stuff.
The Shannon Elizabeth movie?
Exactly,
Yeah.
the Shannon Elizabeth snowman movie.
I feel like you were a big Shannon Elizabeth fan back in the day.
No, not really, actually.
Really?
I do think...
Were you a fan of her when you bought that Pokemon shirt from Hot Topic?
yeah, like a decade ago. I mean, I guess.
Or were you just really answering this question about Shannon Elizabeth? Like,
Well, my history of Shannon Elizabeth started. No, sorry, continue.
yeah. But I was just gonna say, like the movie is on like DVD or Blu-ray or whatever. It's like $119 for a DVD on Amazon.
It's crazy.
And it's Prime, so you get free shipping. But like, there's like one guy who's got this box of Jack Frost DVDs, and he's like, "Ha ha! Collectors are gonna have to come to me."
We all know
wants
people
to see it casually and just buys the Michael Keaton Jack Frost movie by mistake.
We all know people like that though. Like if you look back, I mean, like Ryan Scott, who's a friend of ours, or Sam Claiborne, who works here at IGN. They're both like really big retro guys, and they're collectors to an extent. And one of the rarest NES games is like this Fred Flintstone game. It's like the Flintstones Vacation Garbage or whatever. I think that's what it's called.
Vacation Garbage.
Here's our trash rock house.
Flintstones' feet hurt from driving a car with them.
But it's one of the most expensive games because it's incredibly rare. They printed a few copies and then stopped because it was bad or whatever the hell the story is. And that's like going back, 30 years later now, people are like, oh, that's one of the most rare games, and they hunt it down.
Doesn't mean it's
but
good.
it doesn't mean it's good.
Yeah.
But it's part of the story that is that collection. And if you're a collector, which I'm sure there are people who we don't understand it right now, but there are people that want to get every PS4 game, right? They're collectors, they're completionists. This is part of that set, and this will be hard to find unless you get the disc. But yeah, it's a bad game. But
that's like
doesn't mean it
people
should
were
go away.
selling PS4s with PT installed on them for like $1,200.
We had a PS4 in the office that had PT on it that
And it
died.
just broke. Yeah, and I was like, well, that's literally one fewer copy in the world.
That's
of that
crazy.
Game. Yeah.
I think I've talked before about my PS4 still to this day, when I turn it on, it's just infinitely trying to download PT.
I don't think you ever actually told this story.
Yeah, you need to talk about this.
Yeah, so I had PT basically one of the days it was one of the days, I was still in Texas, when they announced, like, hey, you have 4 days left until PT gets pulled or whatever. I was like, oh, crap, like, I have to remember to redeem that. So I did it online. I did it from the PlayStation Store website. I said, download a PS4, and I never thought about it. And then I moved, so I hadn't turned on my PS4 in a while. And I guess the download must have started but never finished, and it got to, like, 99% probably or whatever, so it was partially downloaded. And so my system keeps just desperately trying to finish the download in perpetuity. So I Vined it at one point, but if I turn on my PS4, there's just this infinite loop of downloading PT, download failed, downloading PT, download failed. And
But you have PT?
No, I can't
you
play
don't-
it.
so you don't have it?
partially downloaded.
You're like your PlayStation's like that Japanese dog that goes to the subway station to wait for its master, but its master's dead.
Basically.
Oh, I'm gonna get PT. Oh, I'm not. Oh, I'm gonna get PT. Oh, it's gone.
it's so weird though. Yeah, so if I start a game or if I download an update or something, it'll kill the notifications. But if I turn my PS4 off and back on, it starts it over. It's really
God,
weird.
that's so tragic.
It's like a ghost.
I'll bump that tweet back up. Or
and
something.
there's nothing you can do with it, right?
No, because I can't play it, and I can't. I guess I could probably somehow just completely cancel the download, but I feel like I don't want to just like delete it. I don't know. It's weird, and it is really funny. Like I don't mind turning it on because every time I'm just like, oh man, what could have been.
Yeah. That's pretty cool, though. I mean, it's. I think my pal Nick Robinson, who's over at Polygon now, he wrote this piece
I love that piece.
about how PT is like the coolest game ever. Like Konami kind of unintentionally made an incredibly cool game in an age when we do have these kind of like. There's no scarcity for games, and they're like, just kidding.
Yeah, I think
you can never have.
I think that piece is called "How Konami Made PT the Coolest Game Ever" or something like that. Nick is cool. Babylonian on Twitter.
Yeah.
Tell him podcast Beyonce's side.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Don't bother the poor man.
No, bother him. Let him know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give him hell.
yeah.
No, we love that guy.
GameStop posts a 9.3% drop in software sales year over year. So
9.3. They sold 9.3 less games.
That's a classic.
also, the software seals, the delicious, they
Fewer games.
balance a ball on their nose.
No, I mean this came from a conference call, a earnings call.
I'm tired.
The thing that I found interesting about this was that Battlefront and Halo 5 and Assassin's Creed and all the big fall games are below sales expectations for GameStop, and not for EA, not for the publishers, but for GameStop, meaning people aren't going and buying as many retail copies of this game as they expected. People are downloading it digitally or getting it on Amazon or whatever it is.
So one of the reasons they attributed this to this is that their Black Friday ads leaked early, and it basically has huge sales on a bunch of these games. So they think that people are possibly holding out and waiting until they get them. Like for one, they have that Battlefront bundle that's like the PS4 and everything. That's like way cheaper than if you were to buy it today.
Yeah, that to me feels like she's gonna call me. I just know it.
Yeah,
it just feels like
Why did you look at me when you said that?
Well, so I mean, the reality is that
I need your sympathy.
GameStop is still the dominant brick and mortar store where people buy their video games, but buying habits are changing. And people are buying digitally. I know that I almost always prefer to get my games digitally over having a disc that I have to get up and change. Like I knew specifically I wanted that Battlefront logo on my home screen on my PS4 for the next year. And I didn't want to get up and get a disc and have to switch.
Well, and especially portable. Like, there's never a case where I would rather have a physical 3DS or Vita cartridge as opposed to downloading it.
No, my Vita library. The second it took me a second, even more than half a second to open up a Vita and put a game in, I was like, I never want to do this again.
Exactly, and plus it's easy to lose games. And for 3DS, it's even worse because it saves to the cartridge. So it's like if you lose your Animal Crossing town or whatever, like that's it. No cloud saves, no anything.
There's been a lot of like sort of denial on GameStop's front for a while now that it's like, oh, buying habits won't change and people aren't going anywhere. But the reality is they've ramped up their presence for digital cards on the floor of their stores. They sell gift cards to Amazon, Applebee's, everywhere in there. The other thing is that about a year ago they partnered with ThinkGeek to create a section of their store.
I like the idea that somebody goes in there, they're like, will my son enjoy this Applebee's game? Yeah, he'll like that. That's a good game.
Well, also you have holding up Battlefront versus an Applebee's gift card.
So hold on. Let me explain that real quick because I think it's kind of important that you're dealing with a younger. You're dealing with a younger demographic than I think most stores, right? Which means that you have kids who deal entirely in currency that isn't credit cards. Which means that if I bought a kid Afro Samurai 2 and he played it and it sucked and he brought in and they gave him $25 back, again, this is a completely fictitious reality in which any of those things happen, such as GameStop giving you $25 for a used game. But he can take that and buy a $25 like Olive Garden gift card with it or Amazon gift card with it and go and spend that money elsewhere. And that kid who doesn't have actual cash is
loves
breadsticks is now in this universe where he can spend his money on all these different stores.
I like that you call Olive Garden a universe.
Yeah.
The Olive Garden
Cinematic Universe
probably coming.
Speaking of Italy,
I do think that GameStop's like kind of customer base is really interesting, and I agree with you. They're totally different than any other retailer because you're getting kind of those three groups. You're getting like the kids who are mowing their lawn and want to buy a video game, and it's like making a $60 purchase is like a gigantic purchase.
It's a huge thing.
Or you're getting the kids in college or who are older and have their own income or whatever it is who it's expendable, like it's extra money. Like video games are not a necessity for anyone on the planet. And it's like you only go in and buy a bunch of video games if you have extra money or if you're irresponsible with your spending, I guess.
Yeah.
But also, and then obviously parents buying for their kids.
Have you guys gone into a
adults.
GameStop recently?
Actually, I sold my PS3 and my Xbox.
It's really weird because I go in there and they got Andrea Renee on the TV and she's like a pal of ours and it's like, oh hey,
but no, it's weird because I went in on Saturday for like the first time in a long time, and there was just like it's toys and stuff. And
that's the thing.
And they have statue sections and about 1,000 Funko Pop figures.
They partnered with Funko Pop and ThinkGeek like a year ago. Like their ThinkGeek partnership was huge, right? And that was to basically just get toys and stuff like that in their stores.
We're going back to this thing like back when we had like Babbage's and electronics boutique. Like they totally had the big action figure section because that was a thing that was popular back then. I think we're going to see a huge spike in that.
You're also seeing, like, for me, like EB, and there was an EBX in Connecticut, which is like kind of retro games and stuff. And then there was, obviously GameStop tended to be like smaller, like mall stores. Used to be connected to Barnes & Noble a lot, stuff like that. Whereas like now you are seeing like what you just said about the one on Market. Like you're seeing GameStops that are 2 floors and they have like a collectibles section, and it's not just like a toy aisle, but
phones and stuff.
Exactly, like the one in Texas.
They buy and trade used phones now. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. They have like rows of statues and like in glass cases that are like $500.
Barnes and Noble, meanwhile, is a great place to go buy Gundam models. If you're
really
yep,
that's weird.
Which is really bizarre. And I'm trying to think of the logic for this. Like, I think it's because, I mean, you see this with action figures and like game stores too. Like, these are things that they're kind of brick and mortar stores for something that's becoming rapidly more digital. You cannot make a digital version of a Gundam model or of an Amiibo or of a McFarlane toy.
Right. In the same way,
So,
you can't download a controller. Right.
And the
Like,
issue, it's also the issue like
You wouldn't download a car.
you get to the issue of like
you wouldn't download a console.
of shipping and stuff too.
Yeah.
And like the amount of money it probably costs to like Gundam models are incredibly light but take up a ton of space.
Yeah.
Like, they're very large boxes. So like I imagine there's some kind of like loophole where it's more affordable to ship a bunch of them to a Barnes and Noble. Like they're probably cheaper to ship than books, but they take up more shelf space. But like, I don't know. There's some really weird dude has a job of figuring out profit margins.
It's very odd watching this whole spectrum go down because basically GameStop will sell you a console, and then that console will hypothetically sell you games forever. Like they are basically giving you a gateway drug to something else that cuts them out of the equation. And some people still want that. Like, okay, so there's also, we talked about collectors earlier in the show. There's also that tangible good feeling that people want. If you spend $60 on something, you want it on your shelf. Some people do. I'm
or
past
gifts.
that.
If you're giving someone a gift, you want to feel like you're handing them a wrapped present.
You also can get rid of something when you're done playing it. Like if you got Battlefront and you played it for 15 hours, you're like, I saw everything I need to see here. You can bring it back for $25 or whatever, in whatever nonsense money they give you for your hard-earned purchases.
And
you can't do that digitally, right?
The nice thing now is like because of this, their trade promotions are like insanely aggressive. Like I got a lot of money for my PS3 and my 360 and all my games because it was just like every weekend is like, 20% bonus weekend, which like super adds up. So it's like it is nice, but it's just funny because like the novelty of a trade-in store, like it used to only be GameStop, but like now like Best Buy and Amazon and all these like mainstream places, like I would 10 times out of 10 rather trade into Amazon and be able to like buy like stuff I need rather than to
I saw
GameStop.
your shopping list.
Well, you can go to
shopping list
GameStop
today.
and get an Applebee's card.
Oh, that's
Go
true. We'll
get
never
some- go
mind.
get some
You can
blue
get it in
onions.
any-
Or an Amazon card.
Yeah.
Or I mean, actually, the weird thing is that you can trade physical games into GameStop and buy digital points cards for your PS4 and go home and spend your money there, which is like the worst thing. The thing they never want to see happen is that your money stops circulating in that store.
Yeah.
Basically, if you're always buying and trading games into GameStop, they're always doing better. But so my question to you guys is, how many years do these guys have left? Honestly, 5? 10?
So I think as long as PS4 and Xbox One are around, like this generation, I feel like they'll still be fine because there are still physical games coming. It's more like whatever's next is interesting to me. Like whatever that like new platform is like years down the road.
Whatever's
like
NX.
Ooh, no, it won't be the NX. No, but like whenever you know.
I think even the NX will have they'll have a disk drive on it while we're here.
I mean, probably.
Like I think that internet in the world is not at the point yet where people can download a 65 gigabyte game over
I agree with that.
afternoon.
I think if anyone's going to do it first, it'll be Microsoft. Actually, I can see Microsoft making a console with no disk drive next.
Really, because they even
I
like
could see
they
them-
hinted at doing anything like that at the start of this generation.
people
And
freaked
I could
out,
see
but
my
that's
flip. I
because
could
of-
literally see an Xbox One version that comes out that's smaller, cheaper, without an optical.
I
disc.
completely
And we've been
agree. I
hearing
think
about
they're
that for
the
a while.
company
I
that would
just
do it.
yeah, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
But I mean, anyway, aside from that, like point being, like whenever that starts to happen, that's when I really think you see GameStop in panic mode and really, like I mean, Pear's been saying for years that like eventually maybe GameStop becomes Trade Stop, and they're already getting there, right? And maybe it is more about your toys and your iPhone and your iPad.
Applebee's.
You know what's
Rules
weird?
brought to town.
The one of the first Sony was actually one of the first companies to even try this with the PSP Go, which was an all digital system. You know, it's crazy to think that that's something they tried out.
And Greg Miller bought a drawer full of them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
have
mean, I
one. I have one too.
I
I love those things.
I don't.
That was the only PSP model I never owned. I owned the 1000, 2000, and 3000. I don't know. I think it's interesting watching GameStop, and I think it says a lot about what gamers are doing right now and how they're, you know, it's also interesting, like NPD, which we report in every month, is the U.S. sales chart, physical only.
Yeah.
But it's slowly expanding out to digital. It's slowly incorporating more retailers and things like that because, like, you can't pretend that that's, you know, the bulk of sales might not be physical anymore. Like, I think there are certain games and certain audiences that do want those digital downloads.
And we saw the same shift happen in the last 10 years with music too, where it was just like, no, we're only reporting on Walmart sales, and it's like, why? Everyone like I download an album on the way out the door to work when I'm just like, I want to hear that old Wu-Tang record, and I just hit a button and it's there on my phone.
Well, and we were talking on Friday about like Brandon was working on the Bloodborne review. And it's interesting because we talked about the term DLC, and Marty made the really good point that it's like sort of an antiquated term at this point because everything is kind of downloadable at this point.
Oh yeah.
It's really interesting. I'm fascinated to see where the industry keeps going. I think that's what's fun about kind of being a part of this like young, evolving industry. Is like we don't know.
It's exciting. It's really cool.
Speaking of Blood, do we want to talk about Bloodborne real quick?
Yeah, I was going to go
how
over
we're not going to talk about Bloodborne.
I was going to go over the drop real quick because there's a couple notable things coming out this week.
Yeah.
Beyond Two Souls
Beyond.
is out. Two Souls for PS4. If you haven't played that,
The official game of this podcast.
That is worth playing alone. Go watch Greg Miller and I's Let's Play of the birthday
So
party
you know what
scene
really
in that
sucks
game.
about the PS4 version?
You can play it chronologically, right?
But you have to beat the game in order to unlock that.
Oh no!
What?
Yeah, it's like, well, I don't want to play it twice.
Side note, I really wish that it was mandatory for all HD or just re-releases of games to have a DVD menu in them that let you bounce from scene to scene. Like I've always wanted like
good
that.
idea,
like,
yeah.
hey, I want to play through like all 12 of the major confrontations in GTA.
Or
I want to
imagine
go
if
through.
like everything in the Uncharted collection was just like, hey, you can play whatever mission you want right
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
Such a good
exactly.
idea.
You're like,
I
I want to
love
go through
that.
that spider tunnel chase scene from Uncharted 3. Click, here it is.
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
why that's not.
Or jump to my
that's
favorite
still like
boss in
such
Shadow
a
of the Colossus
foreign
or whatever.
concept, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
That's
I've always
such
said,
a
I've
good
wanted
idea.
a Zelda where I can just go in and play the temples.
Yeah, you go see a movie in theaters the first time. Everyone else is seeing it the first time, presumably. You can't jump
Yeah.
around, but you get it on Blu-ray. You're like, you know what you're getting.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I bought this. I gave them my money. I can do whatever I want.
Isn't that weird how that's
Yeah,
just not
it's
a
a really
thing?
good idea.
I
Ever?
like that idea a lot.
Throwing it out
here,
there.
Shuhei.
Or just
Free
like
idea.
unlock codes.
Everything
you know?
gets dumped on Shuhei.
Remember, like,
It's not
before-
even his decision.
Before we had like save games or anything, they'd
Yep.
just be like, "Yeah, it's the Buster Bust Loose code or whatever." You just put on a bunch of rearrange the tiles
Oh,
or
yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
and you're like,
Yeah, and like it's
Justin
really
Bailey,
interesting.
--.
Yeah, or like even when Banjo Tooie came out and you could enter codes from Banjo
Yeah.
Kazooie.
Stop swap.
Yeah.
I do like the idea that with all of our problems, we ask Shuhei to fix them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shuhei, my ex is moving in with a new boyfriend. Fix it. Bloodborne: The Complete Edition is coming out, which includes the Old Hunters DLC, which is what we were talking about earlier. The review is up on the site now. Brandon reviewed it. He liked it a lot. I believe he gave it an 8.
Yeah.
8.
He said it was very hard.
It is incredibly difficult.
Unsurprisingly, but like even difficult for him
Yeah.
and for Bloodborne players.
And so also one of the problems is you can pop into the DLC stuff pretty early in the game. I think it's after you beat Vicar Amelia, who's like
Yep.
the 4th or 5th boss. But a lot of people are playing on their New Game Plus files because they beat the game,
Yeah.
and then they immediately started New Game Plus and saved there. And so the game is significantly harder there. So it's almost suggested that you play like before you beat the game the first time that you go back and play this.
well, for a lot of people, this will probably be the first time they've
Yeah,
played it.
totally.
This is
Yeah,
going to be.
it's absolutely worth picking up.
I just got Bloodborne. I'm going to start it. hopefully
nice.
during Thanksgiving.
awesome, man.
Yeah, we're going to be streaming it a couple times this week. The new weapons look insane. The bosses are crazy, terrifying. You're in this like nightmare version of Yharnam. Yarnam's already a nightmare.
Oh, good. I'm glad they finally made a nightmare version of
It's
Yarn.
like literally like the streets like are just like rivers of blood now. It's like,
Oh, good.
okay, that's what
I'm
we
actually
did.
really excited for that. That was actually one of my favorite things about that game was the environment. Just walking around
Yeah.
and just being like, I'm
Yeah.
terrified.
One of the
everything.
big drawbacks I know a lot of people had was that not everything was covered in blood. So
Yeah.
it's good
Yeah.
they fixed that major issue.
There weren't
That was,
enough dead
that was my
horses
biggest
everywhere.
complaint coming out of that game was that there was like maybe 2 or 3% of it that didn't scare the living out of me. So it's good that they they did that.
I have nothing in the drop now because now I have to do the
We have to
cussy.
figure out what time the cuss was.
The rest of the drop stuff's pretty dumb. Minecraft Story Mode Episode 3. That game just keeps happening.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it could even be another, like Job was tweeting out about Michonne, the Walking Dead spinoff series
actually
coming before the
Mitchell?
end of the year.
In Minecraft Story Mode, Michonne's
and-
going to show up?
No, I hate you.
I'd love to see that.
You're just, I love you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You're going through a range of emotions there.
And then, yeah, we might even see.
I'm hungry.
I don't think it's impossible to see Minecraft Story Mode Episode 4 for the end of the year because they've been
Really?
doing more than once a month. So, I mean, I don't know. It would be crazy if they
That's a
just finished
telltale
it in
record.
January. Yeah. Oh, this is already by far a telltale.
4 episodes in 4
They have
months.
already released 3 episodes in less time than between Wolf Among Us 1 and 2, I think.
Wow.
Which is crazy to think
That's
about.
nuts.
Well, I think it's probably because Minecraft has a little bit more money than Image Comics, or Vertigo, or whoever that was. Yeah,
Bill Willingham.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't started Minecraft, but talking to Justin, he's pretty lukewarm on it. So hopefully episode 3 picks up.
Cool. We've got Rapid Fire.
That's right.
Wow.
Show.
Head on over to the Facebook group dedicated to Podcast Beyond. That's podcast or facebook.com/group/podcast. I think.
Podcast.com/Facebook.
Apparently we gave it out wrong one week.
Okay, so here's what you do. When you go to Facebook, instead of looking up a picture of your ex or telling your dad he's racist, at the top, type in Podcast Beyond. This group will pop up with like 10,000 people. Go in there, join the fun. It's a good time.
Ooh,
to
but
have
don't.
out.
I actually saw a funny thing on Facebook over the weekend. I know a couple that's been broken up for a long time, and the dude, I just saw him post a Facebook status. It was like 1 minute ago, and he deleted it really quick. But he posted a Facebook status that was just his ex's name, and I realized he meant to type in the search box, but he typed in the status.
Oh, that's the worst.
Yeah.
I do that sometimes. I
Don't do
just
that.
type in pizza, but people
Pizza
get it.
question
It's
mark?
part of my smart thing.
Yeah.
Chris Goodwin says, "What canceled game or games are you most disappointed never got a release?"
StarCraft Ghost.
obviously.
Yeah.
PT,
PT.
Yeah, PT is the immediate one that jumps to my brain.
BC
there.
always seemed
Silent Hill.
interesting to me.
Yeah, BC for sure. Even weird things like the original, what was that? Project Hammer. It wasn't like a game I really think I was particularly excited for, but it's always interesting when a Nintendo property gets canceled. I think that looked really interesting.
Yeah. The
Project Hammer.
That
I
game came out.
It
never
was a
thought that game looked
Wii.
good.
It would have been a Wii launch title. I don't think it looked really good either.
That
but I
game
always-
came out, didn't it?
What was the
Project Hammer.
Or am I thinking of Sin and Punishment?
What was the one that was
Yeah,
part of
you're-
the
yeah.
the Capcom 5 that all ended up getting ported to PS2?
something was
Something Phoenix?
Phoenix, Rising
Yeah.
Phoenix.
It was
or-
like
yeah.
like a bootleg Kid Icarus
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
That was really cool. What about do you remember when we first heard about GTA 5? There was that tech demo for that game going around that people said it was GTA 5, but it wasn't. Do you remember we watched it in the office?
yeah.
Was it like This Is Vegas?
Not
or
Agent, but
six Nights in Hell, or
it was
6 Days
yeah.
in Fallujah.
Not that one. Oh, Blood in the Sand. No, it was yeah, I know the one you're talking
Yeah,
about.
because that was interesting.
yeah,
Yeah, that
Rockstar
looked
has
really
a couple too.
Yeah.
Agent,
Yep.
Horror of the Orient.
I mean, like my answer to this is well, Horror of the Orient was actually just
Was it Bondi?
Bondi. Yeah, it wasn't Rockstar.
Yeah.
But the big one for me is, I mean, it doesn't apply to this podcast, but Earthbound 64, which became
yeah.
Mother 3 on Game Boy Advance.
Right.
But the 64 version, I think, would have been interesting.
I also really want to play. I've talked about this on the show before too, but there's this alternate version of Resident Evil 4.
Oh my god!
Oh,
with
yeah,
scary
yeah,
little
yeah.
ghosts.
That's like a psychological horror game
Well,
that
also,
has ghosts.
I know-
that is my white whale of a story in this industry because I know someone who knows someone with a with still
Shut
like a
up.
ROM of like whatever that
Really?
game was, and my like white whale is to be able to find that.
Oh
Yeah.
my god, that would be
Yeah.
so cool. That is my
That would be
favorite Resident Evil
incredible.
game.
Yeah.
I know, I guess you guys don't care, and you only kind of care peripherally, but Danganronpa, the original designs for that are like, instead of Monokuma being a bear, it's a man who's like literally chopped in half and like his guts are out. And
Oh
the
my
game was
God.
like way scarier. And
Sounds like a Bloodborne boss.
yeah, Polygon. I keep plugging Polygon articles, but Polygon did a really cool article about that too, about like the original kind of Danganronpa concept, and it's like 1,000 times scarier and darker, which is
Yeah.
like crazy because that game's really dark already. But
that's so cool.
Like original versions of games are fascinating to me. I think that's a really cool thing.
The one thing that I hope surfaces somewhere is the 16-bit Akira game. That never
yeah.
was.
Oh, yeah.
That, like they had ads for it and stuff, but there's like a
yeah.
handful of screenshots. It looked like Road Rash, but with Kaneda.
Is it
which
is it
sounds
driving
nuts.
game?
It was like platformer driving kind of
Wow.
thing.
The exciting
So
thing
like Blaster
right
Master?
now.
It would have been a mess. I mean, it would have been like, a classic kind of 16-bit adaptation type thing where
Right.
it's like
Yep.
they take a scene and they make it into a level. So Super Star
feel
Wars
like
type stuff. You know?
We're
so
at this
cool.
really interesting time where like people are digging up this stuff, and they're like I feel like people now are like old enough that they're going back to things from their childhood or whatever it is. But like they found that supposed Nintendo PlayStation hybrid.
Oh, yeah,
with
they
like
were-
the Super Nintendo controllers with the PlayStation logo and the disc drive,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
there are all kinds of cool things like that. And obviously, like even things like Star Fox 2 that were never actually released, but like you can get them because of the internet, and like Earthbound Zero before it came out as Earthbound Beginnings. Like there are all these really cool things that were never meant to see the light of day, but did anyway by virtue of the internet. And I kind of love that. I
love
just
Do you know
think that's
somebody
all
ported the
fascinating.
original the PS1 Resident Evil to Game Boy Color? And that
Oh, yeah, I love that.
That was actually being worked on for a while. It was in magazines.
Well, it came out for the Tiger Gamecom.
yeah,
Yeah.
No, Resident Evil 2 came out for Tiger Gamecom, and
How
it
is
was
that
like
possible?
it's so
Isn't that
fascinating.
weird?
It's like a black and white slideshow that you basically interact with.
Well, have you ever seen the Halo DS stuff?
yeah, no,
like
that
that's
was
such a-
running off of the GoldenEye Rogue Agent.
Exactly.
engine. That was
like there's so much cool stuff like that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know. Maybe someday that's a cool like roundup feature.
Yeah, there's
'cause so many
a really
cool-
good website called Unseen64.
yeah, we
Oh, yeah,
plugged them on the
yeah,
show a
we've
few
talked about
times
them. Yeah.
actually.
Yeah,
They're really
they're
cool over there.
And they're not only in 64 games either.
No,
like this
it's
fight
just
is total,
Star
yeah,
Wars
yeah.
1313.
Oh
obviously.
yeah,
Oh,
God,
God,
there
yeah.
you go.
damn it!
Yeah.
Yeah, if you oh man, Mitch and Anthony and I saw a video from
Humble
a
brag.
source that we wrote about it. You can find it on IGN. We got a bunch of incredible concept art. But once that game was starring Boba Fett, it oh man, and I really hope Amy Hennig's Star Wars game is anything even close to 1313 because that game. Oh man, it looks cool. We're always still trying to. My white whale is to get that video on the site because
That's
Side note: there's
incredible.
there's single player stuff in Star Wars Battlefront, like challenges, like battle and survival, and all the hero battle stuff you can play as Boba Fett. and it's about as close as you'll ever get to playing 1313 because it's a third-person, over-the-shoulder jetpack shooting
so
game.
much fun.
So
He's really fun to play as. He's my favorite hero to play as.
The heroes are great. You can do a bunch
great.
of stuff there.
Evan Gary says, "What is your favorite Thanksgiving dish?" That's,
Any of the ones with turkeys on them, the cool pictures of on the background of the plate.
You like turkey plate?
I like plates with turkeys on them. I think it's a great time. I like to use them year round. I like to have lots of turkey plates.
I'm a weird. I think turkey's the least exciting thing about Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
I'm a sides man.
Me too.
Are you a yams dude?
I'm not a yams dude.
I like
What's
mashed
the
potatoes,
yams?
pecan pie. Big fan of pecan pie.
Pecan pie is real.
I'm a stuffing boy
real
myself.
dumb.
Stuffing, like
a nice
stuffing,
a nice
good
stuffing.
stuffing's
Unless
really
there's
good.
nuts or water chestnuts in the stuffing, that
Ooh,
can
see, I like
go
that.
straight to
Dude,
hell.
Dude, who the hell puts water chestnuts?
Maybe
in
just regular
Have you ever had
chestnuts.
stuffing with like raisins?
People put water chestnuts in stuffing.
Raisins,
that would make me violently ill.
No, it's like finding like a piece of bone in your hamburger.
Oh,
It
that is
sucks.
the worst.
I've had water chestnuts in cranberry sauce.
Yeah,
What
who
is
does
with
that?
people putting water chestnuts in things? Water chestnuts should go in one place, the trash.
Yep. Thank you.
should be
Thank
drowned
you.
in water.
That is
We're on the same page
disgu-
there.
oh,
Speaking of
God.
that, I do like cranberry sauce. Yeah, I totally agree with you. I have a bunch of turkey on my plate, but I'm mostly excited for the
like
sides and the
cornbread.
desserts.
Yeah.
Cornbread's
really good.
awesome. I'm actually going to make some of that this week.
For those of you
Bring some in.
non-American listeners, these are weird foods we eat every
Yeah.
time of year.
That's why all Americans are up to.
We here in
celebrate
America,
America's first picnic.
which is spelled with 6 R's, is we go through an annual fattening where we just fill ourselves with big old birds.
We're trying to sink our own country by getting real big on top of it.
Danny Ellie Rosa says, "Why are guys always surprised when I tell them I'm a girl who loves video games? Aren't we over this yet?
You think
be,
so?
yeah.
Apparently not.
No.
I think.
I find
crappy
it, I
dudes
find it
aren't,
weird now when I meet someone who doesn't play any video game whatsoever. Like even outside of like the,
Yeah, like
the
Candy
Switch
Crush
or
or
anything.
That
anything.
happened in the last 10 years, by the way. That's
Yeah.
I'm totally with you.
Yeah.
Or I talked to somebody the other day who was just like, "Oh, I don't play games at all."
Yeah.
And I was like, like not even on your phone? No.
Well,
Never.
that's like
They're a waste of time.
I don't
Like,
talk to people outside the circle of nerds who we are in.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's mostly that weird group of people. I don't know. Like I met a girl who didn't listen to music like at all. She was like, "I don't listen to music." And I was like, "Really?
Did
Like
music-
nothing?"
did music
Was she
And,
like
I'm-
an assassin or
She
something?
was
Like,
an assassin. But I feel the same way about games now. Like if someone says they completely don't play any games whatsoever on their phone, whatever, like I find that surprising. Or at least like I have yet to date anyone who thinks it's weird that I play video games or that like reacts to it
I
strangely.
mean,
Like,
anyone who would think it was weird is not a person worth dating.
yeah, and at the same time,
especially
like I
for
would
you,
never.
because it's your job.
That's true. It would
because
be
you
hard.
wear a Pikachu T-shirt.
It's like if you were a doctor and they were like, "You like to save people." I just use leeches. And then I eat rocks.
Yeah, but I to answer this question, like I'm over it. I'm not surprised.
Yeah, no, there's definitely that whole like '90s holdover where it's just like, "Oh, you're a girl gamer, wow, you're a rare breed."
What
that
is
doesn't
that?
even
Who told you
exist."
that? Like, what is that?
It's just like
know what
they're not
these
that hard to
viruses
find, you know.
That's our like dumb guy voice.
Oh my God, there's a girl and she's got a
babe girl. The babe is a gamer.
she's wearing a bra and she's got a controller. I don't know. I think like what's worse is that you see there's all those like really bad stock photos of like girls playing video games in the '90s that they're not plugged, controllers not plugged in, or they're just
Yeah,
some
they're
and
and
then there's all these other guys being like dumb girl gamers, and it's like that's the
Yeah.
photographer's fault.
It's also this weird thing though where
She got paid that day.
I've never understood the gamer girl fantasy. Like the people I've dated, like I've never dated anyone who's enough to to totally want to disregard my interest or anything. But honestly, like I like the idea of dating someone who's like, let's do. And I know you have this with Teresa. It's like let's do something outside of your interest. Someone who will challenge me to actually leave my apartment and go on a hike or do something I wouldn't be doing normally.
My fiance plays games and it's real awful. It sucks. Luckily, she plays Vita a lot, so I don't have to fight with her over the TV. But like when Skyrim came out, we were like fighting over it, and I was like, I have to play this for my job. And she's like, but I'm a lizard who's a wizard. And I'm like, get off the TV. Stop playing this friggin' game. But yeah, no, she'll just like not shower. She'll be sitting there. She'll basically do all the stuff that we accuse like stereotypical dudes of doing.
Yeah.
And
What
she'll just be
Andrew
sitting
did
there
on
like,
Saturday.
yeah, just sitting there with like her hand in a bag of Cheetos and she's playing like Danganronpa. And I'm just like, can you not like.
But Monokuma was originally a man with his guts falling out.
Yeah, and it's,
No, I think it's kind of important to get outside of your comfort zone a little bit. That being said, if you're a girl gamer, no one should be surprised because it's 2015. Deal with it.
And also like your personality and everything they care about you, like your interests are part of it, but shouldn't
I
necessarily
really
define
like
you.
this impression of the dude.
if you really want to surprise a guy and you're a lady, tell him that you're a president. Tell him that you're I'm the U.S. president. And they're like, no way, a female U.S. president?
Oh man,
that's
is that
crazy.
a girl president? That's
I've never met a
crazy.
girl
President
before.
girl? Oh.
A president with legs and long hair. That's not that out
Hey,
of control,
Dad, I'm
man.
here with the first female president. I met her
Trevor
at the
Thompson
mall.
says, "What's a game that has helped you through a hard time in your life?"
You said hard weird.
Go for hard, hard, Hard. Go for it. What's a game that's gotten you through all of your whole life?
Weirdly, the timing of Arkham Asylum and Arkham City when they first came out were two like really weird rough patches for me. So it's like interesting that both of those kind of coincided really well and are games that I could just lose myself in, which is nice. And then as a kid a lot too. Like I guess there are like games I came home to. I remember after like my first breakup coming home to like PS1 games.
As a kid, your first breakup as a kid?
Well, not as a kid, but
Really? That's the way you link those sentences.
Yeah.
I have a lot of breakup memories.
Were you laying pipe
I
back in middle
got
school?
divorced in first grade. And I came home and beat the hell out of DuckTales.
Fallout 3 and Far Cry 2 were both games I played during a very I kind of in hindsight, it was sort of like, I'm sort of acting out how I feel, like these are games where you're homeless and scavenging or you're burning stuff and you're diseased. And I was like,
I'm all of those things.
In the process of dropping out of college and living on my dad's couch for a while and sort of, I think I broke my computer playing. I was playing on a MacBook Pro. Both of those games were in boot camp, which is not good for a Macintosh computer. But yeah, Fallout was like, it was great to play when I was in college, and I was just like, most of my things are trash, and I'm gonna eat garbage now because I'm 23 and I don't have a real job, and it was kind of cool though to have a world where things are actually kind of threatening but simple, And I think that's kind of always what's great about video games is that when real life is hard but in a complex way, you want to go in and punch something in the face and shoot it with lasers or whatever.
Yeah, totally. I had it must have been 6 or 7 years ago. Braid came out right after Super Gnarly Breakup, and playing through that game, especially playing through
played
the
Super
ending.
Gnarly Breakup.
Break up and Braid Up.
That was a
Super
great
Gnarly
PSN
Breakup
game.
64.
It's a Cappy game.
Yeah, and playing through that game was like I was like, oh, this game is such a good puzzle game, and I'm enjoying it. And then at the end, like when the sort of the twist happens at the end, I'm like, oh my god, this was my relationship.
That's horrible.
I was like, why, Jonathan Blow? Why did you know this happened? Then most recently, last year when Jen and I broke up, I was on Sunset Overdrive for a review. It was like the week after, and I was just like, I don't want to do this. And I started playing the game, and it was one of those like 10 hours went by, and I'm like, I didn't think about it at all.
Yeah.
That was nice. Nice, colorful world.
Todd David Hamilton says, what has been your favorite moment in gaming this year?
Ooh.
Honestly, it sounds weird, but Sony's E3 press conference. I mean, seeing Shenmue 3 and the Final Fantasy 7 remake, like those moments were just like, what was the third one? What am I forgetting?
Disney Infinity.
Last Guardian. Yeah, Disney Infinity. Yeah. No, but seeing, Last Guardian, Final Fantasy 7 remake, and Shenmue 3 are like those whoa moments, and like just like the way the room like screamed and reacted. Like, I don't know. That was like one of those moments where I was just like, I love one of the coolest things of working here, like in addition to just like obviously you guys and like all the cool things, I really love every E3 remembering those moments, whatever the biggest thing is, that moment where the room just erupts, you know? And like that press conference especially was just like having 3 of those like never happens. I think when Sony a couple years before that did the
game trading thing,
thing and all that stuff and the price, like those were really big moments too.
Because you were on screen at that conference.
Yeah, and when me and Greg and Colin were on the screen, that was really cool. No, but this year totally, I think, especially Final Fantasy VII for me personally, because I'm not really a Shenmue guy. Man, that was such a cool moment, and I don't know. Second to that would have to be Cloud and Smash Brothers was just a really cool surprise.
Do you have any any cool non-Final Fantasy ones?
And also when they announced that new Theater Rhythm game,
playing a game.
I have one.
playing gaming. Oh, I'm sorry.
Cool. Yeah, that's great.
I did the Thanksgiving dish thing.
Yeah, no, you named a bunch of things you haven't actually played that are just things that happen in the video game.
Ideas.
I misunderstood.
What's yours?
Mine was playing Walker Assault in Star Wars Battlefront on Endor for the first time. Return of the Jedi is my favorite movie of all time, and it's my favorite Star Wars movie, and that's one of my favorite scenes from that movie, and I can play it.
Yeah,
which is like, what? Like I'm just watching Speeder. Like I was grinning ear to ear the first time. Now I played Walker Assault on Hoth and Sullust and Tatooine, but this is the first time it kind of randomly popped up where it was like you're playing on Endor, and I'm like, oh, that's right, you can do that.
I like when you say that you played Walker Assault on Hoth and Sullust and Tatooine. It sounds like you're having a stroke while saying difficulty levels. Play on Hoth
but the second all of these ships start coming in and people come in on speeder bikes and you're shooting one off and it's like 40 players at the same time.
Oh, it's nuts.
And you're running through the hallways and shutting down the generators and all this other stuff, and it's just like.
And Y-wings are coming.
Yeah, as you're running, like the grass and the leaves and the clovers are bending underneath your feet, and it's just like what.
Yeah.
I love when you just look over and a tree falls over. And
Yeah.
you're like, who did that?
Battlefront
it
is
just
seriously,
a tree.
everything in that game is so pretty. It's like almost distracting, as weird as that sounds. Like there are so many moments where it's like I really do just like stop and look around sometimes. And
Like
I'm
it's weird that it's been how many years since the PS3 launched or PS4 launched?
Two.
We're terrible at
It
this.
is two.
It's two. Exactly two. Yes. That's right.
And this is the most. This game is the most I felt like I'm. Like, this is my Mario 64 moment of this generation.
totally
Of just sort of
agree.
like,
Yes.
this is next gen right here. Like this, watching this happen and just like sitting there with my headphones on, giant TV in front of me and playing this game and being like, this is the Star Wars like dream I've always wanted to be able to
Also,
play.
I think the correlation between how pretty that game is, how much is going on, and the fact that it's online and the load times are not bad at all. Like it's pretty.
It's
pretty
60
painless.
frames per second.
Yeah,
It's just like,
bonkers.
what? How did you guys do this?
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
this-
I've definitely had some pretty exciting Battlefront moments. I really wish we talked about that because that's all I did this weekend. But
Yeah,
like,
me too.
Phantom Pain was like a game that I swear I feel like I've been waiting for my entire life. And just there was a moment I think specifically when I'm just like. I'm geared up and I'm in my leopard print camo and I've got a dog with me and the dog has an eye patch, or maybe I have a robot that I painted pink. I don't know. And while I'm in this helicopter and I'm just blaring Hall & Oates and I'm like, yeah, why is this a game? I don't know what's going on, but I'm really happy about it. And it's,
I had that same moment in that game, and I talked about it in this show, but there's that one escort mission where you have to get, right before you fight the Metal Gear for the first time, and you have your dog, and you're in your walker, and on the back of your walker is that like knocked out scientist you're carrying, and a giant robot shows up to fight, and it's just like you're in funny robot legs and camo, and like they're playing Final Countdown, and there's a dog next to you, and I'm just like, all of these things are coming together at the exact same time and making just the most gorgeous painting. Like this is so much fun.
no, it's crazy. Like that, and there's never going to be a game like that again.
No.
Yeah, I think it was the first time that I was like, I was far enough into the game and confident with like my skills with it that I was like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna listen to some Kim Wilde and I'm gonna murder a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I'm just like Kids in America is one of my favorite songs ever, and I was just like running around this stupid base camp and just like punching people in the face and like just throwing people over boxes and the dog biting
He's
people.
been really good for those moments. Like I was just thinking, like I'm sure you think the same thing, but pretty much any boss in Bloodborne, like the moment you like Vicar Amelia or Father Giglionis.
Would you know? Remember when you get out of you get like some you screw up something, you end up in that prison area.
Oh yeah.
And then you walk out and you're like, I'm safe.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it's just like, ah! And it's just giant nightmare horse shows up, skeleton thing. Yeah, and I beat him on my first try, and it was just like I was screaming, I was pumped. Like my wife had to come in and be like, honey, calm down, because I was just like, ah! I killed him.
Yeah, I had a bunch of people over the other day where I was just like Friday night or something, and I'm sitting there, I'm playing Battlefront, and like there's I think 4 people around me who are having a conversation like human beings, and I'm just like playing it, and I throw a grenade at Darth Vader's face, and it blows up, and it's like you get 400 points, and I'm like yes, and everyone just kind of turns and looks at me, and I'm like, sorry, go back to your conversation about life or whatever it is you do over there.
So what was yours, Marty?
I think the bosses, a lot of the deaths in Until Dawn, which those were like incredible moments where I'm like, wow, I really messed this up, and that character is gone forever. I did not do this well. And then I think my favorite written and delivered scene of the year is in the finale of Tales from the Borderlands, sort of the
Jack
Reese,
stuff.
Reese and Handsome Jack, without spoiling it, is just super emotional.
Yeah, it's really weird for me to say, having obviously worked there, but yeah, I mean, like some of mine really are Tales because I care about that
Biased.
franchise a lot. I mean, yeah,
You're
of
the
course.
biased.
How much did they pay you in money to do the thing with the saying it?
But no, it's
What do you
as a-
mean a girl will play a game with her hands?
as a Borderlands fan. for a
Don't
long
their
time,
hair get
I
stuck
think
in
it's-
disk drive?
All right, I give up. You guys are the worst. No, I'm done. I mean, that's all.
No, but okay, we're dumb. Well, those are our favorite video game moments of 2015. That was Rapid Fire. For more of that, head on over to the podcast, Facebook group, Beyond, and you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is that time of year when hopefully people get new games to play and the weather gets crappy enough that you have an excuse to stay inside and play them. This has been an awesome year for games so far. It's going to get better next year. We are at that wonderful sweet spot in the console life cycle. The PlayStation 4 is kicking ass. What do you guys want? What's your best time of the game? Tell us anything. Say hi. What do you like to eat on Thanksgiving or any other day of the year? Let us know. Email us beyond@ign.com.
Also, you can start leaving
terrifying.
comments in the We're going to draw some questions from the comment section of the article that goes up with each episode, too, for next week's.
And to answer you in advance, Greg and Colin aren't here anymore. That's the most frequently asked question. Where they are, you can go find them. They're over at Kinda Funny. They're doing great stuff over there.
And start thinking about, I assume we'll talk about 2016 predictions sometime in the next few weeks.
Yeah, definitely.
Start thinking about that stuff.
Yeah, we'll be back next week with our final pre-PSX show.
Yes, and
Pre-SX?
yeah, I was just going to plug
Prius
that.
X? Well, that sounded weird. Prius X.
It's the foreplay show.
Sounds like Prius sex.
Yeah, we'll
Big back seats.
will be streaming a pre and post show,
Great
so
mileage.
9:30 a.m. on the 5th, leading up to the PlayStation
Yeah,
conference at 10.
Saturday, 9:30 a.m. PT. YouTube fools will probably have to be on it.
Yep.
Because you're the handsome talkies.
Yeah,
Thanks
and
a
we'll
lot.
probably have some kind of reactions after too. I'm super excited to see what happens at PSX. The conference last year was actually really good, and Sony has been killing it so far this year. I think TGS went great. I think Paris Games Week was great.
Yeah,
so.
we know a couple things, and they're very cool. And I think you guys are going to be super jazzed about them.
Totally.
Yeah.
After that, there's only 12 more conventions left for 2015, and we're all done. There's Idaho Games Month and Kentucky
Emma
Game
WattCon.
Corner. Emma WattCon.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for listening, and beyond.
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 Gotta be a hound.
Beyond.
All night long. Beyond.